Guess what, guys? Apple isn't the only game in town. I'm Stacey Lesko with the Los Angeles Times. Joining me today is the lovely and wonderful Sal Rodriguez from our Tech and Business section, who will be unboxing the Microsoft Surface 2. Sal, let's see. Do you think it can rival the iPad?
Probably not, especially after the showing that Apple had yesterday. But Microsoft is definitely going to try. This is the new Surface 2. It's the follow-up to the, well, inside is the Surface 2. This is not the tablet. But it's a follow-up to the original Surface, which came out last year. And as you might remember, the Surface looks really cool, but there's some fatal flaws that just, really doomed it from the start. For example, the price. They're trying to go head-on with Apple. Last year it came out at $499 for the starting price. This year they gave a little bit, and they will start instead at $449. I personally think that that's still not enough to entice customers, especially to leave such a beloved brand like Apple. But that's one of the flaws. Another thing that was wrong with last year's model, I'm just going to go ahead and start opening this as we talk, was the battery life. I mean, it was about 3 hours long at the max. I think that's the most that I was able to get out of it when I tested it. And of course, that's pretty horrible for a tablet, especially because the tablet is the kind of gadget that you take on a plane. So if you're flying, further than if you have to do like a cross-country flight, just forget about it. This device is going to die on you halfway through the trip. But Microsoft, address that issue, and reviews that have come out say that battery life is no longer something to gripe about. It's finally on par with Apple, the iPad, and
other tablets of the world. So as you can see, we're getting closer to it. But I mean, really, even if this was a comparable device, do you think that they can even go up against a behemoth marketing machine like Apple to really appeal to a young demographic that would be buying this?
Well, it depends. Microsoft isn't entirely going after young people. They have kind of geared it for students, but they haven't given up on professionals yet. So they kind of don't entirely want to choose a specific market. They're going after various people. As far as actual marketing dollars, that doesn't seem to be too huge of an issue either. With the last Surface, they marketed that pretty strongly. You might remember, all those commercials with people dancing, celebrating this amazing gadget, and then the ones, that kind of embarrassed the iPad by pointing out its flaws using a voice that sounded exactly like Siri. So they have the marketing money. It's just, right now there's just issues with it. For example, another big issue with Windows 8.1 now, and also Windows Phone, is the lack of apps. Until yesterday, they didn't even have Instagram for Windows Phone. They finally announced that, and until Windows 8.1 launched earlier this month, there was no Facebook app. And so, Microsoft's been moving to a world of apps, not just websites, and it took them an entire year to get Facebook, the most popular social network on the planet, to make an app for them. So that's just some of the flaws. So basically the answer right now is probably not. This probably won't be able to compete with the iPad.
So before you open this up, though, I just saw, did this come with its own tote bag?
Well, I mean, this is by Target, so it's probably not included in the Microsoft purchase. Okay. And this is the reviewer bundle, and usually when Microsoft sends me something, they usually include a bunch of things. It doesn't look like they actually did that this time around, but
maybe they're watching your reviews.
Yeah, but they did include a lot of stuff. But as you can see, they also threw in this keyboard, and it's a really cool keyboard. I was just talking with my colleague about it, about how it's so cool. You can actually just type on the keyboard. It's nicer than doing it on the touchscreen. Yeah, it's really awesome until you realize that you have to pay an extra $100 to get it. So it starts at $449, but that's without the keyboard, which is honestly kind of the most innovative part of this tablet. It's kind of something that no one else has touched on, although there are now reports that Apple is copying that keyboard, but we haven't seen that. But here's the device itself, and actually they sent me two keyboards, so first I'm going to tease you with this other keyboard, and here is the Surface 2. So there are some differences with the model from last year. For starters, This one is like a gray silver color. So if you get the Surface 2, you can now choose from black or silver. And this actually does look really cool. Not many companies can go toe to toe with Apple when it comes to design. I would almost argue that that's Apple's strongest commodity now, is its top-notch design. But the Surface 2 is really pretty. I mean, it's got a very like nice cold metal feel to it. It looks awesome, and you know, when it comes to design, there's nothing lacking with this, and that was the same with last year's model. Um, they've also have, you know, added another little option to the kickstand. Before, you could only hold it up now like this, but if you push further now, it gives you a second angle, and that's there to improve how it sits when you have it on your lap. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just for typing or getting work done. You can also use it for some more leisure situations. The screen has also been improved, as happens with all tablets. Before, the Surface RT, the predecessor, only had a 720p HD screen. This one now has a 1080p HD screen, and I sat down with Microsoft recently, and they told me that, you know, they've done everything they can to reduce the glare and make it seem like, you know, the image is right at the top of the screen, and all sorts of stuff. But honestly, there was nothing wrong with the last screen. It's just natural evolution. So I have to set this up. It's Microsoft, so that can take a little bit of time, but I'll get that going eventually. But it's pretty neat. I mean, it's still cool. It's just, we'll have to see how the battery performs with this device. Last year it was bad, but this year it's supposed to be not even an issue.
So what
It's
about the weight?
processor.
Does it feel lighter than the iPad? I mean, the new iPad Air is only a pound.
Yeah, the new iPad Air is only a pound. This is supposed to be, I believe it's supposed to be lighter than its predecessor. It's also smaller and thinner, and it's pretty, like, you know, it's pretty thin. But you know, Apple continues to push the envelope there, and the iPad Air is called the Air for a reason. It's basically as small as the iPad Mini, which when I reviewed that device, you know, it felt like, you know, even if you hold an iPad Mini now, it still feels so futuristic because it's got all this power and it's so slim. This is not that small. You know, for starters, this has like a true widescreen. This is a 16:9 ratio. And Steve Jobs, you know, they made the conscious decision of not making their tablet that wide. And, you know, when I reviewed the first version of the Surface, you know, there was really no time when I decided to hold it like this. It's kind of ridiculous. It's like, it just doesn't make sense. It's so tall, you know. So really, you're only going to be holding it in this widescreen view. So it's small. I don't think it's heavy, but I think if you gave me an iPad Air right now, I'd be like, oh my God, this is like lifting weights. So, so you know, it's not bad in size, but you know, when you compare it to Apple, it is bigger.
So really that aspect ratio would be perfect for someone who wants to cruise the web, who wants to watch movies on their tablet, but without, you know, really using a lot of the popular applications that come with other models.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more for people who want to get work done because, you know, as my other colleague put it, they think of the Surface as a tablet laptop hybrid. That's certainly true for the Surface Pro, which runs on a full version of Windows 8.1. The Surface 2 runs on Windows RT, which there are some limitations to it, and it's more like a tablet. But you know, when you do hook it up to its keyboard, which has like, you know, hard keys that'll bounce back a little bit. Well, if you get the type cover, it does. It is a lot more like a laptop. So it's because of its widescreen, it is good for watching videos and watching movies, and because of its ability to like just seem so rigid and have a keyboard, it's good for getting work done.
So last week we talked about the Acer C720 versus the HP Chromebook. Can this really compete with something like that versus a traditional tablet?
Yeah, definitely. It certainly can because it does come with that keyboard. So, you know, one reason that you would get a Chromebook instead of a tablet is because you want to be able to type. So if that's what you want, this kind of gives you the best of of kind of those two worlds, because when you do close it, it's got the cover just like an iPad would, and then it's still small, and then if you aren't typing, you can just take the cover, or you can just fold it back, and it's still just fine. So they kind of are competing for the same people, but because getting the base model of the Surface is $449 plus about $100 or so for the keyboard, you're talking more than $500 at that point. Whereas for example, the Acer C720 Chromebook is just $250. If if saving money is a thing for you, then the Surface 2 is probably not the best choice.
Yeah, so really this would be an investment for someone to just really want to be paying for that keyboard being able to detach from their screen.
Yeah, I mean, the only people that I know who have bought a Surface at this point have been, kind of like diehard Microsoft fans who really just, I guess, want to turn back the clock to the prime age of Microsoft. And I think that Microsoft is heading in a good direction with the Surface, especially with their touch keyboards. For example, let me take this out real quick. But the touch keyboard last year had, according to Microsoft's people, it had 80 sensors. So about one sensor for every single key. That way it could recognize which letter you were trying to type. This year they have beefed that up to 1,080 sensors. So basically the whole thing is kind of like a whole nother touchscreen. And that's really cool because they don't have to limit themselves to just making keyboards on this, nice, cool, flat surface. They can, theoretically make these little sensor pads into any sort of, design that they want. And when they announced the new Surface tablets, they had a concept DJ cover. So, if you were a DJ, you could just carry around your Surface, you carry around your little specialized cover, and you can start, mixing and playing your jams at a club, and it's like, super portable. I'm assuming cheaper than other, gear. And, again, in theory, you could apply that to all other professions. So that's one of the advantages that you get with Surface, but, that those covers haven't come out yet, and Microsoft hasn't announced any plans to come out with those yet, before the holidays, and I don't think that they will, which is kind of, surprising, because this is almost like the biggest selling point of the Surface. It's almost the most innovative point. We haven't seen this from any other tablet makers. It's so innovative that there are reports that Apple was starting to cover this, and if they did, starting to copy this, and if they did, it would be awesome, because it really is awesome. But hopefully Microsoft will hustle on that, because I think that's something that could actually inspire people, especially developers. And as Microsoft has learned with Windows Phone, if you don't have the developers on your side, you really have nothing. But the Surface 2 it seems like it's a good improvement. I still need to actually do a real review. It seems like it's a good improvement, but I think the Surface 3, assuming that there's a new one next year, will probably be where Microsoft, finally starts to, put something out that real people will buy.
Great. Well, I look forward to seeing your full review of the Surface 2. And if you guys have any questions you want answered in the full review, make sure to touch base with Sal on Twitter at Sal19. And for more tech and business news, hit us up on latimes.com/business. Thanks, Sal.